Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Anamkara meditation program. With all my heart, with all my love, my delight to be able to welcome you to this evening's program. So glad you're joining us, and things are getting going in the holiday season. So many people are busy and taking care of various responsibilities and their dharma, and so that's wonderful. So thank you for taking the time to join us here this evening, and join us in doing practices, but all with the intention of knowing the highest. Now, the root of all the practices from the yogic tradition, the Buddhist tradition, the mystic traditions of all our great spiritual traditions are aimed at knowing the highest for ourselves, to be able to really fully abide in that, know that, become free by knowing that, and then walk that into the world, helping to free others, helping others to see that we don't have to be bound by the mind. We don't have to be bound by our past. We don't have to be bound by the conditioned mind, the traumas, all those things, because there's the fullness of being that really is already completely present as your infinite self, as your Buddha nature or Christ consciousness. We have many ways of being able to talk about that, but it's all here and now. It's not somewhere off in the future. It's not only going to come about if you do X, Y, and Z. It's here now. So the practices are aimed at removing the obstacles to be able to perceive and know that sacred reality that's always present here and now. That the only thing that gets in the way of that is the mind, and how it occludes our vision, contracts it, binds it to the little conditioned mind, the ego mind, and all the things that it brings up moment by moment. So we do practices, whether it's this evening or your practices at home, important to have that highest intention in mind as we're doing the practices. Because that's what we're aiming at. We're aiming at the fullness of direct knowing of the infinitude of being, the sublime sacred knowledge that mystics across traditions have come to know and have left the records of and continue to share the practices of, that say, oh, you can know this. Because all the great mystics, they were humans. Therefore, we as human beings have this innate capacity. So that's what we're drawing on. That's our intention. That's our aspiration, to know the fullness of the infinite as our own self, and then be empowered by that, to remove the suffering of all beings. Because certainly we want to remove our own suffering, but we want to remove the suffering of all beings. And to do that, we have to attain that highest purpose of a human birth, the fullness of knowing the infinite, the divine, as our own self, and then live that into the world for the benefit of all. So thank you for being ones doing that in your own ways, in your own life. And we start out doing it intermittently, we get more consistent, and our practices get stronger. So wherever we are on that continuum, we just take the next step. How do we make it further, deeper, keep going? And that's what Anamkara is about, supporting people doing. This is a sacred time for so many different traditions, and everything from our most ancient human spirituality, which was tied into being in harmony with nature, the solstice, the changes that were going on in seasons, in the stars, that informed our connection to life, to earth, to our own deeper sense of self. So that's the roots that we see. And then we see that also this time, recognize it as a sacred time for Buddhists, for Christians, for Hindus, for Muslims, for Jews. So this all is a very sacred time. But as we make use of this time, especially in the northern hemisphere here, and we're heading into winter, it feels like a time for kind of retreating inside and going in And in the traditions in India, monsoon times were like that. It wasn't a time for traveling and being out and about, a time for retreat, for deepening practice. So this is that time. So we'll be in sync with that as we feel that the darkness drawing us into the depths of knowing. Because darkness itself is symbolic. And it symbolizes, what's beyond the mind? Because what's dark to the mind, that's illuminated to consciousness itself. So where we need to go seems dark to the ordinary mind, mysterious, unknown, even unknowable, frankly. But by becoming attuned to consciousness itself, the power of consciousness that illuminates each thought, each feeling, everything passing by in this moment. It illuminates the dreams that appear when we're asleep. It illuminates even the black void of deep sleep, all illuminated by consciousness. But we take that light of consciousness for granted, and we get really busy in the content that it's illuminating. So the meditative practices and the mystic traditions and the great meditative traditions all have said, wait a minute, that content is not the really important thing. It's the light that's illuminating it all. Come to know that. Come to know the fullness of being, the expansiveness of that. Then you come to know the truth of who you are. Because all that content, the mind strings that together as a false self. The memories, the reflections, the roles it plays, the experiences it had, all these things it cobbles together for a false sense of self that it then feels bound by, stuck with, caught in. And so the yogis, the mystics have always said, wait a minute, look beyond that. Look beyond the content of the mind. No matter how alluring it is or how painful it might be, and pain itself grabs our attention, if we can control our attention and know and develop the skill for being able to shift it away from content to the luminous one, the source that's illuminating everything about our experience and our life, then we enter the field of consciousness, the field of knowing beyond the mind, beyond thoughts, beyond words, beyond what can even be spoken of or encoded in words, but can be known by consciousness itself. So that's what we're doing here, is making use of these sacred practices that have been handed down across thousands of years by these great traditions and great yogis and mystics who plumbed the depths of awareness itself. And on the hero's journey, their hero's journey, their hero's journey is everyone's hero's journey at some point, to go beyond, to then gather the wealth, the riches, the extraordinary capacities that come back, whether it's a Buddha realizing their Buddha nature and being able to set thousands free, or us realizing our freedom and being able to remove suffering from people around us, just to help them suffer less, get free of suffering. We do it in our own life, in our own way, all informed by that same power of consciousness. And that power of consciousness is what Buddha talked about, because we need to know the quality of that. The mind goes, I know consciousness. I'm awake here, right? I'm listening to this. I'm seeing what's on the screen. I'm conscious. No, that's not the consciousness that Buddha's talking about, the yogis, Shankaracharya, anybody who's talking about. No, they're talking about the infinite consciousness, the boundless consciousness, of which the mind is one reflected ray. So the consciousness of the mind is really borrowed consciousness, a ray, a reflection of the consciousness that is the fullness of the source of consciousness itself. And that's what we aim at coming to know. And that's where the practices draw us to. So this time that celebrates the coming into this domain, this earthly domain, in so many traditions, celebrating whether it's Buddha, Christ, miracles that show the living presence of the divine. All these are ways of saying, oh, how has this infinite, the divine, revealed itself in this world? And this is the time, especially as things are growing darker, we look to be inspired, to be carried by that transcendent light and that living presence of that light, whose quality is boundless love. It's one of the things that Buddha helped to really delineate, was this talk about the four immeasurables. He talked about the four immeasurables as a way of talking about this field of radiant awareness, consciousness, that gives birth to all, that is the root of our being, beyond words. But if we're going to try to use words to point to it, then one of the sets of words he used was the four immeasurables. Because it's not just some bland consciousness, it's boundlessly loving, compassionate quality is always there. It's boundless wisdom, that it knows all. And we're talking about this quality of our own consciousness beyond the mind. So when we're talking about the four immeasurables, we're talking about what we are capable of knowing just the other side of the mind when we go there. That's what all our practices are aimed at. So we have this boundless loving compassion. We have this boundless wisdom. We have this unshakable equanimity, boundless peace. The peace that surpasseth understanding, as so many mystics have talked about. That we can come to know because it's a peace that isn't conditioned by anything. It's not a peace that's, the mind says I'm at peace if I have certain things satisfied, and if I'm not getting that satisfaction, I'm not at peace. That's not this peace. The boundless peace is the extraordinary fullness of being where there is no lack, there is no want, there is no need, because you are all that is. You are all creation and all that's beyond creation. All forms and all that transcends forms. But to know that, we have to go beyond the mind and the identification with mind and content that binds us to this sense of limited reality. So again, that's what our practices are drawing us to. And so there's that boundless wisdom, that boundless loving compassion, that unshakable equanimity, and boundless rapturous joy. It's bliss, it's ecstasy. That's what in the yoga tradition, in Sanskrit, it's ananda, bliss, rapture, ecstasy. That this is a fundamental quality of being. Not I'm happy because. Those four immeasurables are uncaused. They're unconditioned. They are eternal qualities of this eternal consciousness. Everything we know from the ordinary mind is ephemeral and produced by causes. All kinds of complex factors and dynamics that come together to create the moment, create the experience, create what's happening, whether it's for us individually or collectively on this earth. But they all come out of a series of causes and factors that come together to produce that. That transcendent domain, uncaused. So it doesn't stop. Matter of fact, it's outside of time. Time itself is caused. Einstein talked about that. It wasn't just the mystics talking about that. Einstein talked about this is, time and space come in together. And he talked about it in terms of, what happens at the origin of the Big Bang of the universe. Oh, time and space come together. They are created as part of this domain. But consciousness transcends and subsumes this domain. Mind-boggling. Truly mind-boggling. Truly beyond the mind. Beyond words. So ineffable. But knowable. Knowable. Because you're endowed with the consciousness it takes to know that. by virtue of having a human birth, there's a spectacular gift, the merit of past lives. So what are we doing with this human birth? Because the highest purpose, the highest, is to realize that and then live it into the world for the benefit of all. The highest ultimate hero's journey in the yogic traditions was the person who goes beyond the mind, who tackles the mind and goes beyond it, and then comes back with the riches of that state of enlightenment. The riches, oh, that's loving compassion for all beings. That's the sacred motivation to want to remove the suffering of all beings because there are no others. We come to know that state. We come to know there are no others. All this is ourself. All beings are ourself. How can we leave any aspect of ourself in suffering? If our hand was hurting, would we go, oh, the rest of my body's fine, the hand, I don't know, go take care of yourself? That's how intimately we are connected to all beings. And it's part of the sacred understanding that our more ancient ancestors had of being a part of the ecosystem, being connected to the solstice, the changes of season, the things that were happening on the earth that were reflected by and in the stars and patterns, that gave them a sense of a sacred fabric of life that we all participated in together. And of course, as we've developed more and more technologies, we've gotten more and more divorced from experiencing ourselves as so intimately connected and a part of that fabric of life, of the ecosystem of the earth. So we have people who are willing to, dominate, exploit, degrade the earth as if it was something else. There are people who live years never having set foot on ground. They live in cities. Touch concrete, touch blacktop, may not touch the ground, may barely have a relationship to nature, the earth, the web of life of which we are a part. So part of our getting free of the conditioned mind is also getting free of those levels of conditioning that have us divorced from the very reality that we are a part of. Nature, community, the community of all living beings. So our sadhana practices, our meditative practices that are helping us remove the blinders, all these conditioned patterns of identification that limit and bind awareness, they open the doors to making us even without, unitive experience, seeing the interrelatedness, the connectedness, the interresponsibility we have, the accountability we have for caring for each other, caring for others, caring for the planet. And those who don't know that, they're lost. They're so deeply afflicted and cut off and dissociated in their minds. So we want to help them awaken to the true life that they are a part of. All this unfolds with the expansion of consciousness that our meditative practices, as simple as they might be, sitting in stillness, sitting in silence, repeating mantra, doing sacred chants that are emanations of that consciousness that help to draw us back into that state of knowing. It's all about reclaiming the more expanded state that we're capable of until we can reclaim the entirety of it. That it fills everything, holds everything, the entire universe. You hold galaxies. within your sublime being. That's how magnificent you are. That's how magnificent the practices are that bring you home to knowing the truth of the reality of which you are an expression. And you're endowed with this power of consciousness to know that fullness and live those four immeasurables into everyday life. That's our sacred journey. That's our path. Or we can use practices from one tradition or another tradition and stay focused on that, because that's tremendously valuable. But we can have an appreciation of the breadth of everything that isn't contained or defined or limited by any one tradition. So that's what we're doing here, is entering into that. So our practices, our satsang. Satsang means keeping the company of the truth. What's the truth? Truth is your divine. The truth is you are boundlessly loving, kind, compassionate, wise, peaceful, empowered to remove suffering. Know that. Own that. Know that to be the truth of who you are, as much as you think the truth of who you are is the ordinary mind. And the roles that this mind and body, gender and whatever play in the world. We identify with those quite readily. So sadhana practice is inviting us to step aside from that. They're not going to disappear. We're not going to dissociate like they don't exist. No. We're the infinite, of which that is one expression. Sadhana is additive. Add the infinite to the finite. And the finite takes its rightful size and place within the embrace of the infinite. That's what we come to know. So all our practices are aimed at that. And this gathering is aimed at that, so that we walk together. Satsang, sangha, is one of the three jewels, to be in the company of people, in the company, even in this sphere of consciousness. We have people, joining us from the other side of the world. They're so far away, it's tomorrow, but we're one in the field of consciousness. Because the field of consciousness, that's not bound by time and place. The field of consciousness is all embracing. That's where we come to know unity. And by being informed by that, then even while we're looking through the eyes of this ordinary mind and body, we still hold the awareness. It's as if the back door of your being is open to the infinite. Right? You're looking into a finite world from the infinite. You're looking at what you see and hear and smell and taste. Their senses are for playing in this domain, but consciousness, fully expanded, always there. So we're learning to experience that fullness that then informs how we see, how we hear, what we taste, what we go after. All those things are transformed by the light of the infinite shining through us. That's what we're doing. That's what we're getting clear. That's why when the mind gets clear of conditioned patterns, the light shines through. The mind becomes like a pane of glass where the light of the sun just shines through. Once we've cleaned off all the crud of all these lifetimes of conditioned experience and wrong identification and patterns that we're wedded to and the ordinary mind's willing to fight for and everything, it's attached, it's identified. Let go, let go, let go. Regaining freedom is about letting go of bondage. Regaining the totality of who we are is about letting go of being bound to a little identity, a little me, a little I. So that's what we do here. And one of the ways that the power of that consciousness is so potently conveyed is mantra, because mantra is a throb of that consciousness itself. And it's a little tricky for the mind, because the mind goes, oh, wait a minute, I know words. I got words going on all the time. And so the mind is okay. It's comfortable with mantra in a sense, but it also diminishes it if it looks at it through that attitude of it's just another set of words. Because really the mantra has taken word form in order to be able to be entertained, grasped, held by the mind, so that then the mantra can dissolve the mind back into its source, which is the source of mantra, consciousness itself. So every sacred mantra, its root is the infinite, beyond words. But it's taken a form by the grace of the infinite, reaching into this domain of forms to provide a way to know and get free. So mantra is a vehicle for knowing and becoming free. The more we take refuge in mantra, the more we keep our mind and our attention through the day just absorbed in mantra, rather than so much of the garbage thinking the mind does is just chattering away. Oh, have it say Om Namah Shivaya or Om Kali Ma, Om Kali Ma, invoking the great mother, the mother of darkness, the mother of light, the mother of all forms. Om Kali Ma, Om Kali Ma. So when we're taking refuge in that, we're leaving behind the conditioned mind and all its conditioned patterns of thinking and feeling and reacting and everything else. We're done with that. So we have to shift our attention to truly be done with it. So we have to take a hold of our attention, say, no, we're not going to rest in those old patterns. We're going to this new pattern. Because change itself, how to create change? Old pattern disruption, new pattern creation. The old pattern, mind. New pattern, Om Kali Ma, with the awareness of I am that infinite one. I am that sublime power. I am that boundless one that is pointed at by the name Kali Ma. It's pointing at the truth of who you are. So that's how we let go of the mind, come back to the truth of who we are. So what we're going to do now is chant Om Kali Ma for a few minutes. Om Kali Ma, Kali Namo Namah. And Kali is the great goddess. You know, this yantra is the Mahakali yantra, and so it's a graphical form of her. And we did a whole program talking about that, and it's in one of the videos on our YouTube channel, talking about that yantra and the many layers of symbol in that points towards, there in the center is the black dot, the portal. Black to the mind, because that's the mystery. Pass through that, and you're in a luminous field that is indescribable, suffused with the four immeasurables. It's the whole point of all the practices. So when we're chanting Om Kali Ma, Kali Namo Namah, Kali Namo Namah, I bow to you, O great mother, the very source, the very essence of my being. She is the one who has created every atom in your body, every cell in your body, every organ in your body. Everything about your life is an emanation of that power, that energy, that Shakti. That's the understanding to have when you're doing mantra. Don't let the ordinary mind get involved. The ordinary mind makes things ordinary, and then it misses out and goes, well, I didn't get anything. Well, yeah, because you stayed with just ordinariness. You stayed with just thinking. Enter the vehicle of mantra. Go where the vehicle mantra goes. You enter the vehicle of mind, well, you already know where it goes. It goes to contractedness, reactivity, old patterns of thoughts, endlessly reproducing themselves, on and on and on. That's the old pattern we're disrupting. The new pattern we're creating, Om Kalima, Om Kalima, Om Kalima. Let me just watch. Let me be the witness. She's the consciousness that watches. She watches the flow of the breath coming in and going out. The flow of life coming in and going out. She watches the stream of the mind just flowing by without becoming the stream, without becoming engaged in any of the stuff floating by in the stream. Because when she looks at it, she just goes, oh, that's all me. That's just forms of my power, my energy. Dancing is this thought, this feeling. Don't get involved in the details, the content. See the substratum of that. It's like going into a jewelry store and seeing it's all gold. Oh yes, there are earrings, there are bracelets, there are necklaces, there are different forms. You don't get involved in that. It's got gold. That's how you watch the mind, the stream of the mind. Oh, just Shakti running by. That's all it is, different forms. That's the invitation that's inherent to the mantra, to shift perspective out of the ordinary mind into the self, into boundless consciousness, into Buddha nature, into the witness, the seer who's never seen, who's never bound, who watches with great delight the unfolding of this creation. So we're going to chant for a few minutes, and then I'm going to do a guided meditation leading into the silence of meditation. So here we'll begin. We'll be chanting Om Kalima, Kali Namo Namah. Shri Mata Kali Devi Ki Jaya. Om Kali Namo Namah. Om Kali Namo And resting, resting, still, silent, empty. And suddenly you found yourself walking on sacred ground, mystical ground, where with every step you are shedding seeds. You are planting seeds. You can't help it. You can't stop it. You look back at the fertile soil you've been unconsciously traipsing over, discovering some seedlings have already sprouted. Which will you attend to? You discover, even as you attend to some plants, you continue to shed seeds of new life. All kinds of life are sprouting all around you. You are a prodigious progenitor of life. How intoxicating. How disturbing. You wonder, how do I stop? How do I choose which plants to nourish? Which plants to weed out? I'm casting far too many seeds. How do I stop? As you stand there, beneath the canopy of an ancient, majestic tree, afraid to move, afraid of broadcasting more seeds, you feel a presence, wise, old beyond time. She speaks into and through your heart, inviting you into her heart. In all-embracing stillness, in all-embracing silence, abiding in stillness, abiding in silence, empty, warmed by her heart of wisdom, her heart of compassion. You are infused with the wisdom and compassion you need to live consciously, reverently, in this sacred, mystical world where your every movement, every step brings life into this world, your world. In stillness, in silence, empty. You've learned how to be lovingly attentive to every moment. For every moment, you birth new life into this sacred world. Be still. Be silent. Empty. Listen beyond hearing, she said. Be still. Be silent. Empty. Listen. We end with this prayer. May all our practices truly benefit everyone. May all the merit of our practices, whether we do them as we did tonight or at home, may it go to help relieve the suffering of all beings in all times, in all places. And may we endeavor together to free all beings from suffering. Namaste. Coming to know the sacred here and now. To see our lives as sacred. That everything we do plants a seed for the future. To be conscious, loving, compassionate, patient. So thank you for being ones doing the practices, walking it into your everyday life, which helps to keep that flame of the truth alive in this world, even in the darkness. We hold that light high, that this life is sacred, this domain, all beings, sacred. And we can live that truth, knowing that, into our everyday lives, by treating people with patience, kindness, love, compassion. The great disciplines of sadhana, not just about sitting still and dissolving into the one. Oh, how do we live that into the world? How do we bring this mind, body, speech into congruence with the truth of who we are and walk that into the world? So we endeavor to do that. So remember how sublime your practices are when you're doing that at home. Whether it's simply repeating the mantra, whether it's taking some time to just sit and reflect. You're leaving the ordinary domain of the ordinary mind and world to come to know that fullness, that truth, that luminous one, who then illumines your life and allows us to see it's all sacred. It's all sacred. What a gift to be walking this sacred earth with all these other sacred beings, emanations of the same one as we are. So thank you for being ones doing all that. And thank you for the ways that you support Anamkara, sharing our e-newsletters and sharing the videos, commenting on the videos is very helpful. And so thank you. People have been doing that with all my heart, with all my love. Thank you for coming this evening.